Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast.
If I were to give myself one little pat on the back, I'm very consistent. Like, my politics are roughly the same as when I was in college. My comedy outlook is pretty much the same. I've always supported Celtic. I've always done Cork-Kerry banter, Cork-Dublin banter. Like, I'm a very predictable guy. So what has happened, though, is for reasons best known to other people, my reach has increased an awful lot. So I've become dangerous.
Well, it hasn't been too long since I last chatted with comedian and writer Tadhg Hickey here on the podcast. It was just over 12 months ago, but what a difference a year makes, because Tadhg has been a very vocal critic of Israel's war on Gaza and a staunch supporter of Palestine. He also gets his message out there through comedy and is very popular on social media. I'm a big fan of his stuff. You should check him out, Tadhg Hickey, especially on X and on Instagram. And we chatted all about that when he was last on the show. But since then, Tadhg's profile has kind of shot right up. And he's been attracting a lot of attention from journalists and media platforms around the world, including the Times of Israel and Al Jazeera, who have referred to him as an Irish comedian. This was at the Times of Israel, who has become a walking, tweeting case study in how virulent anti-Zionism serves as a thin cloak for old-fashioned anti-Semitism. He's also had his social media account taken down by Meta. So I asked Tadhg to make the trip to the GoLoud studios from his home in the real capital, of course, Cork, and join me back here on the podcast to chat about the crazy year that he's had. From his continued activism and the negative attention it has been attracting, his trip to Iran and thoughts on how the Irish and the Iranian people share a lot in common, the new satirical TV show that he's making, and lots more.
And I'd be a little bit of a kind of a through line kind of guy. If you're going to stand up for Palestine and if you're going to stand up for people in Lebanon, then you have to go all the way. There's no point in just going, I stand with them until it becomes painful for me, and then I don't stand with them at all, because that is not solidarity. Piers Morgan views journalism as, you know, who's the most popular journalist right now, who's got the biggest show. You can think he's a bit of a dick for that, but also recognise that actually he's playing a really, really important role, because if you kind of think that the Zionists have lost Piers Morgan, that's absolutely massive. I mean, Ireland is in a difficult position right now. I get that. Like, if they're too tough on Israel, then the US multinationals and big pharma are going to pull out of Ireland and the Irish economy will tank. Yeah. But what price your soul? None of us know. I mean, we can all speculate. None of us know just how much shit the Israel lobby has on Trump.
Whether you agree with his politics or not, Tadhg is always a brilliant listen, and he's in stark contrast, I might say, to an interview I conducted with Ian O'Doherty a few weeks ago, and if you scroll back you can have a look at that as well. So stay tuned for myself and Tadhg's full chat coming up in just a few minutes' time. But first, it's nearly here, folks. Oasis are nearly here. The biggest show of the year, surely. Oasis about to come to Croke Park. Tickets, of course, were gold dust, the dynamic pricing and all of that stuff. And listen, we've tapped into Liam Gallagher's voicemails ahead of his trip to Ireland.
You all right? This is Liam. You want some? Well, then leave a message on the voicemail. Fair play, Liam. Ronan Keaton here. We met at the Mobos there in 1993, I think it was. Anyway, listen, I was wondering if you're looking for support act for the Aviva Stadium there. I don't think Richard Bancroft is going to kick the mustard. Anyway, listen, lads, you know I love your music. Wonderball, fantastic. Cigarettes and alcohol. I was thinking you should update that to vapes and alcohol. Liam, you know, just more modern touch on the whole thing. Okay, just a thought. Give us a call.
Liam, it's Louis Walsh. Listen, I've noticed you don't have any management at the moment. Listen, I'm used to dealing with brothers. I have huge experience. Look, I used to manage the Carter twins. Do you remember them? I think you guys, Liam and Noel, could do really well. Look, all you need is a haircut and a few decent dance moves. The Pacific Rim is calling, guys. Give us a call.
Liam, how are you doing? It's Daniel O'Donnell here. You'll be very welcome back to Ireland, and I'm looking forward to seeing you perform in Croke Park. Just a word of wonder, love. Your audience now is a wee bit older than they were when you were here the last time, so you might sort of see a load of things been thrown up at you, like I don't know, girdles and tea cozies and stuff on stage. So I'm used to it now, but just be kind to them. They're getting on a bit, you know yourself.
How are you, buddy? Keith Duffy here. I think we met at the Mobos in 1997, I think it was. Listen, how are you, buddy? Would you mind dropping into Tireland while you're here? I'll have the lads fit your tour bus with brand new tyres. Or better still, buddy, we'll come to you. Give us a bell.
And I really hope Oasis drop in with their tour bus to Tireland. And I'd love to see Keith Duffy replacing all their tyres. My big thanks, of course, to our sponsor, deluxebathrooms.ie, Ireland's premium bathroom and tile retailer. Get up to 70% off Europe's biggest bathroom brands. Transform your bathroom for less. Upgrading your bathroom doesn't have to be expensive, folks. Why not capitalise on these amazing offers? They are located in Dundalk Retail Park and Eastgate Retail Park, Little Island in Cork. Make your dream bathroom a reality with Deluxe Bathrooms. They have amazing, amazing offers, and they're in deluxebathrooms.ie as well. So if you want to contact me, of course, as always, it's mariorosenstock@gmail.com. And thanks for all your messages that you send. I read them all and get back to them all as well. So as I mentioned at the start, as Tadhg Hickey's influence and reach has grown, so have the levels of criticism he's been attracting. And the Times of Israel had some particularly choice words to describe him and what he does. So Tadhg, thanks a million for coming on the show again. Here's what the Times of Israel... Sorry, I didn't know the flyer here. Here's what the Times of Israel.
The Times of Israel, anyway.
No, hold on, I can't get any worse from here, Tadhg. It can't get any worse from here. At least it's not. Yes, at least it's Israel, not Ireland. Here's what the Times of Israel. Their writer is called Fidn O'Toole. Thought about. No, he's not. He's not. The Times of Israel thought of you, Tadhg. Meet Tadhg Hickey, an Irish comedian who has become a walking, tweeting case study on how virulent anti-Zionism serves as a thin cloak for old-fashioned anti-Semitism. His social media is an open sewer of hate speech, but what makes his case truly alarming is what it reveals about Ireland, a nation seemingly committed to ignoring and at times enabling the extremist rhetoric. So, Tadhg, the last time you were on the podcast was May 2024, and the Times of Israel... They actually made a comment about you before that gig, and then you said, "Nice lad."
Oh,
but they've changed their mind since then. So what's going on? Why are the Times of Israel, for my listeners? Why are the Times of Israel?
Yeah.
Why are the Times of Israel talking about you in those terms?
Well, I would say that the Times of Israel and other very strongly Zionist outlets, they tend to target people who are being effective. So I've been saying the same rubbish my whole life. If I would give myself one little pat on the back, I'm very consistent. Like, my politics are roughly the same as when I was in college. My comedy outlook is pretty much the same. I've always supported Celtic. I've always done Cork-Kerry banter, Cork-Dublin banter. Like, I'm a very predictable guy. So what has happened, though, is for reasons best known to other people, my reach has... increased an awful lot. So I've become dangerous. So then you're getting all these attacks, not just from Israeli outlets, from everywhere and anywhere, even some outlets within Ireland. And we may talk about that at some point, Mario.
Yes, we will.
So that's it. I sleep very well at night. I'm very confident that I haven't a racist bone in my body. I'm not an anti-Semite in the same way that to call Michael D. Higgins a racist or an anti-Semite to most Irish people is laughable. Whatever you think of the guy, it's very hard to imagine him, like hanging out with members of the KKK, for instance. So I don't worry about it. I think it's sign that I'm doing a good job.
It's very hard to imagine Michael D. Higgins taking a pillow cover off his head, and it reveals Michael D. underneath it.
I could see I lost you halfway through that there as I described Michael D. Higgins and the KKK.
So Tadhg, it's fair to say that I'm trying to backtrack for my audience. So it's fair to say that you've always been like a Republican,
an Irish Republican, who has wanted to see a united Ireland for a long time. I mean, you're wearing a lovely Irish... Thank you. This is from You Boys in Green.
Yeah.
They do great apparel.
Yeah.
Give them a little shout out.
You've always, as long as I've known you, had sympathy with the Palestinian plight.
Yeah. Because I would be an internationalist Irish Republican, not a narrow-minded, imported kind of ethno-nationalism that you get in Britain and America and stuff. So it'd be very much an anti-colonial, like showing solidarity with oppressed people all over the world. That's the type of Irish Republicanism that I'm interested in. James Connolly, Roger Casement, etc., etc.
And in fairness, it would be fair for you to state that you would have been consistent in those views as long as at least I've known you.
Yeah.
So what has changed, though? I mean, you've been very, very, very active since 2024. And before 2024, you were what I might describe as very active. But you've kind of gone to, well, forgiving the pun, weapons grade activity at this stage. You've got into traveling, visiting, campaigning, speaking, podcasting, appearing on major podcasts, Al Jazeera. You've been in Iran, which I want to talk to you about. Tell me how that journey has been through you for you for the last year. How has that journey affected what you believe? Has it concreted it, cemented it? Has it changed it in any way? And how has it affected the fact that you're also a family man now who's just had a newborn kid and you've been away quite a bit?
Yeah, whoa. Jesus.
Big question, but try and...
Yeah, we have time, I suppose. I mean, like the main thing that's changed for me over the last year and a half is that overall certain things that I felt did exist, like international law, rules-based order, basic humanity, basic fair play from the institutions, those illusions have been smashed for me. I still believe in people. I believe in individual people. So like traveling to places, showing solidarity that is painful. I mean, like solidarity as defined by, say, someone like Noam Chomsky, by its very definition, is you vouch for somebody, you stand up for somebody even when there's nothing in it for you. So it's not solidarity to say, I hope they keep this swimming pool open because I use it every Friday. It's about that place should be open for those kids because they need it, and it has nothing to do with me, and I'm happy to pay my taxes so that they get it. So for me, solidarity has to be a bit painful, and I'd be a little bit of a kind of a through line kind of guy. If you're going to stand up for Palestine and if you're going to stand up for people in Lebanon, then you have to go all the way. There's no point in just going, I stand with them until it becomes painful for me, and then I don't stand with them at all, because that is not solidarity. Activism has to be a bit painful, otherwise it's just gesture politics, I think. So I'm willing to take the hits if it means that I actually have an authenticity to my solidarity. So when friends of mine say, we would love you to come to Lebanon on the occasion of Saeed Hassan Nasrallah's funeral, and they say, you're going to get some backlash for this in the West because the perception is that, he's a terrorist, it's a terrorist group, and you're going to a little terrorist gathering in a cave in Lebanon. That will be the basic message. But I know those people. I love those people. I will stand up for oppressed people suffering under the boot of colonialism and occupation wherever they may exist. And I don't agree with the dehumanizing them just because it's easier to then bomb them and destroy them if you label them terrorists. So am I willing to go there and take a hit, like maybe an article in the Irish Times or something like that? Definitely, because my conscience is clear, my motivations are clear, and I'm not doing propaganda for anyone. Where I can possibly afford it and do it, I pay for my own flights as well. So I'm not on a jolly, and the funniest accusation I get is when people say, oh, you're just in the pro-Palestine or pro-Lebanon thing now, for your career. As if supporting Palestine isn't a notoriously death knell thing to do for your career. I mean, there is no get rich book that I know of that said, whatever you do, stand up for Shia militarism around the world, because that'll do you well.
Yeah, no. Okay, I'll come back to that in a second then. Because just to clarify things for my listeners again, who some of whom may know you, especially people who follow my podcast and previously used to appear on the Sunday Roast quite a bit. What, from your perspective then, right now, what is going on in that part of the world?
So for about 2 years, we have had a genocide. It began as a genocide. For me now, it's an extermination going on in Palestine. And a quick look at the other areas, the other countries in the region, like Israel, backed by the US, Britain and Germany primarily, but backed by Western culture and values and diplomatic cover and weaponry. has also invaded all its other neighbours or bombed all its other neighbours, and yet is still kind of positioning itself as a victim in all this, and it would see itself as being infringed on and attacked from all angles from various Iran-sponsored terror groups. That's the narrative they would have. So over the last 2 years, Palestinians have been calling it a genocide from about October the 8th. They saw what was coming, and anybody who would be engaged in the region would know that after October 7th, Israel had its perfect excuse and reasoning to go all out in the extermination and the ethnic cleansing. You're finding now 2 years on that the likes of ITV and Piers Morgan and people I never imagined in a million years would be coming out and calling it a genocide, or at least kind of flirting with the idea of it being an extermination. I don't know why that has changed, but I'm guessing the images of children starving to death has done something to kind of light a bulb in the Western consciousness that looks a bit like the famines in Africa that we would have seen, that we would all just go, look, whoever's responsible for this, it's wrong and we've got to intervene. Yeah. Bob Geldof has come out and said his little piece.
How do you feel about, or do you have a view about, so for example, you're very, very engaged online, and from my engagement online or just looking around at these things, it would strike you that, for example, people would have said for a long time in the last year, where's Geldof? Where's Bono? No sign. Radio silence. Where's Geldof? Where's Bono? And then they would almost associate Bono with a kind of a pro-Israeli lobby, or at least a pro-American business lobby, AIPAC, all that sort of stuff. In other words, the idea being inferred that U2, Bono, would be very careful to rub the Israeli lobby up the wrong way. Sure, aren't U2 a huge corporate entity in their own right?
Yeah.
Geldof, where's Geldof? Well, subsequently, it seems that Geldof has kind of, made a few statements on it. We've seen them, What's your view of somebody like Geldof? Would your view be better that you're now on than never, or fuck you bandwagoning bollocks?
I mean, privately, there's a lot of fuck you bandwagoning bollocks going on, in the community, I would say.
Yeah.
Personally, I would be conscious of me, and I'm open to people saying, oh, well, here, you've said this about him or you've said that about him. I mean, sometimes I can tweet in anger, I suppose. I use Twitter a little bit as a kind of a reflex for my emotions. And it kind of works for me, it gets out some of my kind of frustrations and stuff. But overall, I think if I was to say so-and-so hasn't spoken about it all this time, what a bollocks or whatever, that would be making the whole genocide about me then a little bit, and be trying to position myself as the I told you so guy in a genocide, which is not the issue. I would take my lead from Palestinians in all those kind of instances. And I've seen as many Palestinians say they're very welcome to hear Geldof's voice because it has got some power. Geldof will reach a kind of an older, more middle class audience in Britain and Ireland than I will or your average Palestinian will. So it's a good thing that more people are speaking out, because then the genocide might come to an end a bit sooner and lives will be saved. So I will let the people being exterminated lead the charge in how they want to appraise one way or the other voices who have been quiet and are now coming out. Also, and this is probably a little bit of a controversial thing to say within the movement, I kind of understand as well that people have families and they have work and they've been brought up in this capitalist neoliberal world here in this part of the world, where you can't throw everything out and expect that you've got risks. There's risks. I didn't really come with much risks to the table. People have companies, they've employed other people. If they come out and say something really strong early on, it destroys the whole company. And we've seen that there are big consequences if you do speak out. So I do understand it. I know myself maybe what I would have done personally, but I try not to judge people too harsh when they've got families and they've got businesses. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the more people speaking out, the better, though, to be honest with you. But I do think, and hopefully we'll get to this, I mean, you're the only media figure in Ireland, for instance, who's ever asked me to speak about Palestine at all.
Am I?
The last 2 years. like genuinely the only person.
I didn't know that. I thought that you were. I thought that. Here's what I thought. I thought that at the beginning. What I mean by the beginning, I mean that period after October 7th, when you and people like you were immediately engaged. But there was a testing of the waters by what might have been called the mainstream media, going, which way is the wind blowing here? Well, we need to be unbiased and impartial and all that, what I regard as bollocks. The BBC kind of thing of, oh no, well, we can't officially call it a genocide because, if you look at the Webster's dictionary is one thing, but the Oxford dictionary is another thing. And one person's genocide is another person's ethnic cleansing. And indeed, ethnic cleansing even comes into, question, is it ethnic cleansing, all this sort of stuff. But so you were uncategorical about all this stuff. And I thought that there was a beginning bit where you were uncategorical, that people were unwilling to maybe talk to you. But I thought that since particularly the Irish government's stance, posture on the whole thing with the recognising the Palestinian state and the kind of leading the way with Norway and Spain and kind of making that gesture. And in fact, the perceived and rightly perceived softness of Ireland's attitude towards Palestine for the rightly or wrongly sympathy with Palestine, with our own colonial past and everything, would have meant that would have been more welcome onto media. But you're saying, no, you haven't been asked, even though you're like probably one of the most prominent, in fact, the most possibly, prominent.
Well, again, no, I'm just conscious of like not making this about me, but I will tell your listeners and they can make up their minds to themselves, right? So I have taken part in about 5 or 6 international documentaries on Palestine from the perspective of them wondering what is it about this Irish solidarity. So like 2 Turkish companies, there was a Palestinian American company, an Iranian company, all did documentaries about Irish solidarity with Palestine. And like myself, Liam Cunningham, Richard Boyd Barrett, these types of people. And I would often be included in those. So for rightly or wrongly, people associate me now with the Palestine solidarity movement in Ireland, right? So there's been those documentaries. As you said earlier, I've been asked to speak about different aspects of Irish solidarity and complicity in the genocide on like Al Jazeera. Like I've been asked to speak about Palestine on GB News like several times, and I haven't yet accepted the offer because I'm not quite sure whether it would be useful or not to speak to an organisation that would be that right wing. But like all around the world, Iraq, Iran, Australia, America, Britain, never once have I been asked to speak on any mainstream national media outlet in Ireland about Palestine. And the one time I was in RTE speaking about some gig, some event that I had going on, I was specifically asked not to mention Palestine, right? And so I just think that's very revealing about how Ireland's solidarity, it's very weak, like it's very pissy from the institution. So the people are remarkable. But like, I mean, this is the 3rd time that we've spoken, I think, since the genocide, or maybe the 2nd.
May 2024, it could be the 3rd.
Maybe the 3rd.
Well, you're looking back to, October 7th.
I don't ever remember you saying, maybe say, like, don't say that.
No.
You know what I mean? But like you're the only person that I would, associate with like mainstream Ireland. Like, really.
Earlier on, I remember as well, I had Sheila Shoiga on.
That's right. I love that episode.
And it was a really interesting episode because we talked about brands and branding.
Yes.
And this was at a time that people were talking about disassociating themselves from brands associated with Israel, Yeah. But anyway, can
I say one other thing on that? Just park me for a second. So we have a Palestinian, Abu Bakr Abed. He's in Drogheda at the moment. He had to leave Gaza because there was a target on his back, basically. There was enough people were kind of outing him online as, to their mind, outing that he's associated with some resistance group or whatever. No one can find any evidence of it. This is what the Zionists do. They kind of say, oh, this guy is not real journalist, whatever. So anyway, because of the implications there, he was forced to basically leave. His mother said, we would prefer if you go now, actually, because there's a target on our back and we're all going to get killed because of you. He was brought to Ireland. He's been here for the last 6 months. Like you were saying earlier, he's been on like the Middle East Eye, Al Jazeera, George Galloway. He's an extraordinarily articulate, impassioned speaker. He's 22 years of age. He's a sports journalist. He never wanted to be a journalist of genocide or geopolitics even. He's a sports guy. He's an encyclopedic knowledge of football. You should have him on your show. He's amazing and he lives up the road. No Irish mainstream media has asked to speak with him.
What's his name?
Abu Bakr Abed.
Okay.
He's in Drogheda right now. And I think, park me for a second. Why? I mean, prime time have a guy up the road who, in my imagination and in my view and in the views of most human rights groups around the world, is a Holocaust survivor. He's a genocide survivor and he's up the road. Why not have him on?
Let's stand away from that for a second. Apart from people not having him on, am I right then in suggesting that your view of the, like, let's say RTEs and let's say News Talks and maybe the Irish Times and Irish Independence take on all of this is pissy and weak and diluted and categoric and yeah.
That's being kind, because you said earlier, and the only thing I'd add to your characterisation of it, it's a bit like, let's see what way the wind blows. That's definitely there. But also the powers that be are so beholden to US interests, and the Israel lobby is speaking directly, maybe not directly to the Irish media institutions, but there's a cowardice it's corporate cowardice as well. So it's not just let's see what way the wind blows. It's like, if we're tough on Israel, you know, unless the whole world is in unison that we need to be, we're going to lose. I mean, Ireland is in a difficult position right now. I get that. Like, if they're too tough on Israel, then the US multinationals and big pharma are going to pull out of Ireland and the Irish economy will tank. But what price your soul?
One of the things that's emerged through this horrific period is, of course, like often happens, the parsing of words, you know? So this, as I said to you, the parsing of words like genocide and everything. Yeah. And I even do see, like, and it's actually reflected through what you said about Piers Morgan and everything. And
creeping in, isn't it?
And in fact, like, whatever way you'd like to put it, I was remember saying to my son the other day, he was saying to me, Dad, he's only 17, right? But he's clever. He said, Dad, is this Piers Morgan, like, he's turning into one of the most, if you like, important journalists in the world. Like him, loathe him, whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, I am aware of Piers Morgan's past. But there's no question that, you know, he is really, really putting the argument out there, you know, and getting the argument out there. And, you know, from his point of view, I don't know if he's accepted it, but, you know, more and more people who aren't, you know, who feel they have to see which way the wind blows, are pretty much agreeing with the whole genocide thing and the cleansing. Not that it really means that much, because people know in their own hearts what it is, you know. So do you agree about that with Piers Morgan? An interesting figure in that regard.
I mean, he is a necessary evil, like, you know, like, it's like, put it this way, you can both think that he is a mercenary, he's a narcissist. I mean, himself and George Galloway had a chat recently. Basically, Galloway reduced it to who's got a bigger dick, like you or me. I mean, that's where they're at, really. So I think Piers Morgan views journalism as, you know, who's the most popular journalist right now, who's got the biggest show. You can think he's a bit of a dick for that, but also recognise that actually he's playing a really, really important role, because if you kind of think that the Zionists have lost Piers Morgan, that's absolutely massive, because he is such an important voice. You know what I mean? So I'm encouraged by the fact that he's calling stuff as he sees it, but I still think that his motivations are not good. But I mean, who cares?
Yeah. Here's a couple of observations from the outside, just from a person in the media, but also a lay person, just kind of trying to get to grips with it from the outside. I mean, it's clear to me, or you just converse with me on this or get involved. It's clear to me that, like, the real problem stopping this is America, but it's also Trump, because Trump has more or less turned into America. He is the personification of America. So, for example, I was saying the other day to somebody, if Trump wanted to stop this tomorrow, he could with one phone call. If you presume that your man Netanyahu, who I despise who they call him Bibi, I hate this. But the one thing I hate about this is the kind of, you'll have BBC journalists talking about Bibi. Yeah. As if he's some sort of guy, you know, he's got his, but also clubbing him, making part of a club.
we could talk to Bibi. Bibi's there. I know Bibi. He's on my phone. I talked to Bibi yesterday. Like as if Bibi is persuadable.
Yes.
Whereas these guys, the Palestinians, we don't even know their names because they're dark, demonic creatures.
But Bibi, we could talk to Bibi.
That's very
That's
true,
why I call him Bibi, not Benjamin. I call him Bibi because I like him. I talk to him.
Yes.
And that really, really annoys me. But Trump could stop this tomorrow by saying, look, dude, it's over. That's it. End of. I mean, but because we're all beholden unto Trump and we're all waiting to see which way he'll blow, the EU can't do anything. Like I was thinking the other day, why can't the EU, why can't Germany, France, Italy just go, sorry guys, we're sending in trucks? Why? Do you know why that is? Because why can't Germany, France and Italy send in 4 billion quid's worth of aid, just go through it? Or because they'd be deemed you're breaking through a border? We're humanitarian trucks. Is that the way it goes?
They can do it. They definitely can do it. I mean, people can argue the toss about the legality of it, but if the will is there, if the political will is there,
But it's not,
of course
though.
they can do it. And that's the point.
Yeah.
To go back to what I was saying at the start, my faith in institutions, and I think most people in the community, and certainly Palestinians, they never had any faith.
Yeah.
It's like white people are catching up now,
Yeah.
that the rules apply to white people in distress. That then the law kicks in when white people are in distress. But if brown and black people are in distress, there are no rules. You know what I mean? I don't think I've ever felt more ashamed to be European in my life. Like, as much as I would be critical of the EU, I would have been probably talking on podcasts and stuff about how insane it was for Britain to opt out of the EU and how it's a bargaining chip to unite Ireland because overall it's got good values, it's got economic potential.
And somebody like me would have argued for the EU on the basis that the setting up of the EEC, the European Community, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, was to essentially keep the peace.
Exactly.
Primarily between France and Germany.
Yeah.
But stop bombing each other all the time. But really, it was a peacekeeping thing.
Yeah.
Now I'm going peacekeeping, schmeezekeeping. If you can't fucking respond to a humanitarian genocide, what can you respond to?
Gaza has exposed us all, I think, in varying degrees. And the EU as an institution, I think, has been so exposed. As you say, like, I think you characterised it quite well there. It's like, well, what's Trump going to do next?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of embarrassing. It's unbecoming to have this, like, whatever else you think of him, like a kind of a quite ridiculous, persona of a man, and his whims really dictate everything. And then there's this other element to it, I suppose, which is that none of us know. I mean, we can all speculate. None of us know just how much shit the Israel lobby has on Trump or has on anyone or has on any American leader. Do
you know anything about that as an example, Tadhg? I mean, for example, this is what we talk about all the time. I mean, the more you see this, the more you go, how powerful is the Israel lobby in America? What is the Israel lobby? And then obviously from watching it, you hear about AIPAC, the American Israeli Pact AIPAC it's called. Apparently it's, hugely funded, and apparently it funds the majority of congressmen and women and senators.
Both sides of
the House. And of course you're talking about, I'm deviating slightly now, but you're talking about Hollywood.
Yeah.
Obviously very important. You're talking about, Goldman Sachs. You're talking about major financial institutions. But, they don't, Israel doesn't own Goldman Sachs. I mean, what is an Israel lobby? I mean, why does this tiny, tiny country, control the world?
Because it's, I think, an outlier of the American empire. Like, there is no Israel without America. There's actually no America without Israel in the modern sense, and certainly not in that region. It's like, didn't Biden say, like, 20, 30 years ago, if there wasn't an Israel, we'd have to invent one? I think that's one of his quotes.
Okay.
So we'd have to invent this little loyal, imperialist, capitalist kind of enclave in the Middle East.
In that part of the world, to maintain our interests.
I get that. I can't control them otherwise. And I think, like, on the lobby, right, I would defer people to John Mearsheimer's book, which is just called The Israel Lobby, because he comes from a perspective of a realist. So he's not like some mad lefty. He's not an investigative journalist trying to dish the dirt. He's a realist and he wants the best for America. And he kind of describes in great detail how this relationship with Israel makes no sense to the values or the interests of the American people anymore. Arguably, it never did, but certainly not in the modern age. And he just details the way in which they go about kind of capturing both sides of the house. And I think I was trying to describe this to my nephew recently, and it's interesting to try and like talk to this stuff with children, you know, and he was kind of saying, how can that be? And I was like, I've no answer to that, actually.
Yeah.
And you could say the same about Ireland or any country, but specifically in America, you've got public figures who have been paid to the tune of $1 million by AIPAC. And then they come out and say things about the Middle East, say like about Israeli foreign policy or about why the occupation is not actually an occupation at all and it's their birthright to be there, and how the West Bank isn't the West Bank at all, it's Judea and Samaria. But they're being paid to say this stuff. Like if you and I were both on a panel and we were talking about climate change, but if you were being paid like $1 million by one of the big oil companies, I think it's fair to say that your contributions are not really worth the paper they're written on. Mm-hmm. But this is American politics. This is British politics. Yeah. This is Irish politics. Like, I was trying to explain to my nephew how lobbying is a thing, and he was like, but that seems totally unfair. That's like, how could lobbying be a thing? Because like, your opinion doesn't really matter if you're paid for it, surely. I had no answer. And that's American politics. And it just so happens, and again, you know, you've got to be careful with this stuff because it might be anti-Semitic, but it just so happens in their like bizarre mindset, of course, their absolutely crazed mindset, it just so happens that AIPAC have a lot of cash and they're willing to buy both sides of the house, like, and they've done a masterful job of it.
Yeah.
You know, like, how are we 2 years, Mario, into a genocide where we're all watching on our phones, children being starved to death, fathers carrying the lifeless body of their children, minimum 60,000 people have been killed, 200 plus aid workers have been murdered, journalists, schools,
many tens of journalists.
Exactly. And yet we're all kind of going, is this a genocide? Like, is this something that we should be supporting, really? Should Ireland look at the amount of trade it's doing with Israel? Should the central bank stop buying Israeli war bonds?
Yeah.
Like, it's just insanity to me.
It is, I think, yeah. The other day, I think there's a new lows being reached all the time where I'm sure you're well aware of this, but where whenever you see the distended stomach photos, it reminds you of Ethiopia in 1984. Exactly. And then you hear, which I never heard, I didn't think this was coming, the new low of some of the American media and, you know, big names like coming out and saying, how are we sure they're even starving to death? This kid had cystic fibrosis. Yeah. Look at how sturdy his mother was. His mother was well fed.
Yeah.
And I really just can't believe that even if you did, like, there's several sides to that. Even if you actually truly believed that, how would you even say that?
It's a poison, man. I think
like that is terrible.
Poison. It's you know, there was a channel there in Israel's Channel 12. They did a report similar to that, and they ended up with postulating that the mothers are eating their children. That's why the mothers are well fed and the children are starving to death. If you get to that level of kind of hatred, I think it's the whole society that has to be looked at. That's why we get this ludicrous thing over here of, you know, it's Netanyahu and a few right wingers. And you'll see like the British government and other governments, you know, sanctioning 2 or 3 ministers as if that's going to stop the rot. But like, if Israeli society, I think more than like 70 or 80% of them support the war.
Well, is that true, Tadhg?
That's true, man. That's true. And that's coming from Gideon Levy. It's coming from Israeli scholars. This is the thing, right? So we've come so far in breaking down some of the propaganda in this part of the world. One of the last remaining pillars of this propaganda, in my opinion.
Well, let me state that. Yeah? Let me state this in inverted commas propaganda, which I believed to have been more true than untrue. Yeah. Which was that Netanyahu is doing this for obviously there are certain things closer to fact than not close to fact. One of the things is that Netanyahu is doing this to maintain clause on power. He'll go into trial if he doesn't continue the war. He will lose the coalition.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, the far right lunatics are holding him to this as well, of which he may be one. But that the vast majority of the Israeli population are different to this. This is what we would be. You're shaking your head.
Mario, can I ask you something?
Mm-hmm.
Ireland doesn't have a massively different population to Israel.
In terms of numbers?
In terms of numbers, right? It's also a small little country. Imagine a world where Ireland had gained, extraordinary military and financial support from the US. We got a lot of financial support, so it's not a thought experiment that's going to be a massive leap for you. Imagine Ireland as Israel, and we have that level of power, and we're oppressing the Welsh, right? And we've commandeered Wales because we say that this used to be a part of our country years ago. Play the tape forward, and Ireland is committing mass murder on the scale of 60,000 minimum. It's targeting health workers, it's targeting journalists, it's bombing Welsh heritage. It's trying to destroy Wales, actually, is what they're trying to do. Do you believe that the Irish people would largely either sit on their arses or go to there's areas in Israel where they go to watch the carnage going on in Gaza? They've just installed food and drink there. You can go to a vending machine, get yourself, I would assume, a Coca-Cola, and watch people being murdered in Gaza. Do you believe that the Irish people would accept that and say, oh, it's just Simon Harris and a few right-wing headbangers, like, I wish they'd stop? I don't believe it. Mm-hmm. I believe that there's something in the Irish psyche that enough of us would say, hold on a second, we're not going to be taken hostage by these right-wingers in this mass murder. Mm-hmm. There have been no mass protests in Israel about the carnage in Gaza. Mm-hmm. The protests are about bringing the hostages home. And that's not just true in this so-called
war. And ending the war.
And ending the war to bring the hostages home. And this is not my opinion. This is Gideon Levy. This is Norman Finkelstein. These are either Jewish American or Israeli scholars on the Israeli psyche. And again, I don't blame I'm not saying these people are evil, but they've been brought up on a propaganda of you're saying, Arab hatred.
All right, so you're saying the Israeli population is propagandized.
Totally. They're the most propagandized people on earth. Mm-hmm. And that was a deliberate thing. Again, people can refer to Norman Finkelstein's work on the Holocaust industry. They were brought up to believe that what happened to them meant that they could never be the oppressor. They are always the victims because the Holocaust is a uniquely evil aberration of humanity. It was so evil that they can never be the perpetrators of evil. They'll always be the victims. And now they can kind of largely do what they want. And if they don't destroy the Arabs will destroy them. Lots of Israeli journalists and scholars have detailed this, that you're brought up to believe that, if we don't destroy them, they're going to destroy us. Yeah. It's a siege mentality from day one.
Fair enough. One of the most unconvincing parts of this, and one of the reasons why I think, do you believe that public opinion is changing?
Definitely.
All right.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's a massive sea change.
Okay. One of the reasons it's changing is from our almost nightly exposure to these incredulous, unconvincing spokespersons that emerge from Israel. If you're a PR person, you're going, it's like almost Ricky Gervais in the extras or something. You're putting forward people that are just patently unconvincing, for starters. I'm just talking about the viewer, right?
Yeah.
You're watching somebody who is hostile, evasive, will never answer the question, will talk over, won't listen, and will make semi-barbaric statements as a PR person. So that is very, very unconvincing.
Can I ask you, do you feel that for me, you see, right, with my limited understanding about it, they've always been like this. What has changed is that the commercial interviewer has started to be a little bit more tough on them.
Oh yeah.
That's why it's so frustrating, because the Channel 4s, the ITVs, the CNNs, the BBCs, the RTEs, they have been, in my opinion, complicit because they have manufactured consent for this rogue state to be doing this mass murder, because they haven't been asking them the tough questions.
But why are they getting tougher now?
Because they see what way the wind is blowing.
Okay.
Because Bob Geldof has entered the chat.
Because Bob and Miriam have a little fireside chat at night.
if not literally, then figuratively, I think, and there's a lot of people now, this even within Israeli society, you were asking earlier, and again, people can go and check this out. There was no mass, and there still is no mass movement against the genocide. There's complete denialism, or there's vindictiveness about the genocide. But the smarter Israelis see what way the wind is blowing now. In my opinion, we're kind of like in the middle of the Holocaust in the 40s, except that we're all on our phones and we can all see what's happening. And some of the Nazis are going, this is going to be difficult for me to be a Nazi in a post-Holocaust world. I'm going to get myself ready for the Weimar Republic. That's what's happening. And so Piers Morgan is a great example. Like Piers Morgan, he's done good. I agree with you 100%. And I'm a kind of a bit of a utilitarian that way. I'm like, overall, is he doing more good for the cause? Yes. We can appraise his character afterwards. But he is an expert at self-preservation, media self-preservation, in my opinion. And he sees what way the wind is blowing now. And he can see in the post-Holocaust world, he's going to be thought of as actually because every single show he says, I've had more Palestinians on than anyone. That's his big thing. He's looking to the future. So I think they're all seeing what way the wind blows.
What do you think of Iran?
Sounds like a teacher bringing me in just to try and tease it out of me. I think Persians are beautiful people. There's a real rich connection between ancient Persian culture and Gaelic culture. In fact, there's the former Iranian ambassador to Ireland has set up an NGO to actually investigate the amounts of parallels. There's all these things in terms of the myths and whatnot. And Persian people are great. They remind me of the Irish people an awful lot. I absolutely, unequivocally don't support the government at all.
The clerical government?
No, in terms of its domestic policies, I would disagree with kind of most governments all over the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my attraction to, first of all, accepting an invitation to go there was, I was partly honoured that like this state in this part of the world like would recognise the work of not just me, but that Irish people generally. It was a Gaza focused media festival, and I travelled over to that media festival. That somehow became, in kind of the online discourse, that I support really harsh laws against the LGBTQ plus community.
And you
I
do not.
hate women. Mario.
Let's skip to the chase then, right? Let's skip to the chase. But how do you reconcile? Is it easy to reconcile? I mean, for example, the Palestinians live under Sharia as well. So what's your opinion on that? I'm sure, yes, we can disassociate the two.
Yeah, like my big thing on it would be, if I had travelled to the US during the genocide, for instance. So, right, if I was on the other side and I accepted an invitation to travel to the US to a media festival about Israel, there would have been no articles in any of the Irish media because in our Orientalist, racist perspective here in the West, the Americans are still the good guys. They're funding a genocide right now, but they're not those evil brown and black countries. They're A-OK. Yeah. Nobody would have written an article about me going, it seems like Tadhg endorses the mass incarceration of human beings. It seems like Tadhg endorses, more school shootings than anywhere else in the world.
All right, so
it's a total racist Orientalist perspective. But I would say on record, of course I don't support that government. They never asked me to say anything. They never paid me a penny. And this is why I sleep very well at night. How many of the big Irish journalists or Irish institutions can say that nobody is paying them for their silence during this genocide? Nobody pays for my words. Nobody pays for my voice. I travel there, and if I had the opportunity to go there again, I would definitely go there because I don't believe it means that I endorse every action of that government.
And that's fair.
Just like nobody would even ask that question had I gone to Germany, had I gone to Britain, had I gone to America.
I think it's absolutely fine to love Iranians, but I mean, when you think of Iran, let's just get back to basics here. When you think of Iran, right, you think of it's a theocracy, it's a clerical leadership. Okay, so if you're not seen to adhere to their not only leadership but also their religious beliefs, you're blackballed, you're surveilled.
Yeah.
You are watched. You are, in some cases, questioned. I mean, it's in the sense a kind of a kind of a fascist, a kind of a dictatorship of
definitely. You could easily characterize it that way,
Yeah.
and I would say,
and that's something that's what you're saying we're skeptical about. You're walking down the street and you don't know which dudes are watching you and going to pull you in by the arm and go, have you been reading a funny magazine?
that's not, in my opinion, that's not the source of the anti-Iran bias, though.
Okay.
The anti-Iran bias is born out of a revolution that led to a really strong anti-American foreign policy from Iran. And then I think we can both agree now at this point, after 2 years of propaganda from the Americans, that if you don't play ball with the Americans, that they fight dirty. And so definitely the idea of being a theocracy, I think, is becoming more and more ludicrous for the Americans to point that finger anymore, when it's like it's bleeding into an authoritarian.
Correct, they're like a theocracy themselves, yeah. Tadhg, the reason I got to know you in the first place, of course, let's not overlook this, is because you are a comedian. You are not a comedian in inverted commas, as per the Times in Israel. You are an actual comedian, and a very funny one, and I've been to see your shows.
Thanks, man.
And I have publicly endorsed you because you're very funny and you're driven by all the right things. And you're a brilliant singer as well, with an amazing voice. I hope that's still intact.
Thank you.
And of course, one of the most exciting things that's happened in your career is happening soon and happening now. And it's something that we both love, which is satire.
Yeah.
And you're getting involved in a news satire show.
Yes.
With some people. Tell me about those people. And there's some well-known people who'll be featuring in the show as well.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. I'd love to. So, in all this kind of horror, I've tried to keep my comedy cap on, all right, because, it's also serious. Sometimes it can just kind of like drain you a little bit of the thing that you were probably born to do, So I've kept one eye on keeping the comedy going, and I have an opportunity now. I mean, this is to go back to something we were saying earlier, where you lose a lot of commercial outlets, but then you gain a lot of outlets as well. They mightn't be the traditional route, but I've made these connections with a lot of these kind of pro-Palestine, pro-humanity people whose work I love. And there's a lot of goodwill towards me and Nicole Jenez. She's this Spanish-Romanian, I think influencer would be a little bit harsh on her, because she's like a great comedy mind and performer, but she's also just...
So how would you spell Genenes? Genenes. Nicole.
On all of them. She's got millions of followers and stuff.
Nicole Jenez,
yeah. She's great. She's done a lot for Gaza behind the scenes, and she doesn't really talk about it that much, and she's just wonderful. So she's kind of like my co-star, co-presenter and producer, and we've developed this new satire show that I would kind of humbly describe as a potentially anti-imperialist SNL. I'm sick of watching those American shows that basically just take the piss out of Trump and think that they've done something really anarchic. So we're going to try and look at colonialism, look at wealth extraction, look at capitalism through the lens of the fact that colonialism is alive and well, and it's still very dominant, like not just in the Middle East, but all over the world. And so we've shot the first season.
Have you?
And pretty much, yeah. Well done. Like it's because it was largely self-funded at the start. We've just done like about sketches. 5 episodes. It's sketches, but it's got like you got like studio stuff at the start and at the end, and then it's like peppered with sketches and one or two deep.
So you used a live audience.
An audience, an audience.
For NSL.
Yes. And we've got a thing in it called the Climate Report. So we have Jenny with the climate instead of the weather. It's climate, and it's Jenny being a kind of an apologist for the various of climate. So and Nicole does that beautifully. And then we've got like a celebrity interview at the end where it's kind of like some of the stuff that you've done and I've done before, where we're kind of spoofing our actual guests, and the people who've signed up for that so far. Jeremy Corbyn.
You're sort of spoofing the guests.
Like where it's from the perspective of like I'm wearing one of my vintage wigs and I'm kind of an Atlanticist, Piers Morgan-esque type guy who's just trying to bring everyone together. So I've had a couple of what I describe as Jews on my show, and I've had a few Palestinians, and I'm trying to bring these warring factions
So it's
together.
sort of a satirical interview.
Totally satirical interview, yeah.
Okay.
So we're going back over to do the Jeremy Corbyn one soon. He's agreed to do it. It's so interesting dealing with his people, though, because he has nothing to gain from speaking to me. But I think he just kind of likes me a little bit. And I've spoken to him a few times in person. but we obviously have everything to gain from him being in it. But they're just trying to, his people are just making sure that this isn't going to be damaging to him. So we've got lots of people who are interested of giving their time at the start, and obviously it's self-funded at the start, but we have many people now who are interested in funding it. And I suppose the point I was going to make to you today about the show was, rather than me now going, okay, we've got all these people interested, like we've got like iconic British actors like Juliet Stevenson is signed up to do stuff in it. Alexi Sale, I spent a day with Alexi Sale, like
great comic,
comedy level, like what an honour, you know, an unbelievable improviser. Like I had written something that was kind of grand, and he improvised around the script and just brought it to life. And it's, you know, like, you know yourself as a comedy nerd, like you know, just being in his presence and stuff, and you know, he believes in the project and whatnot. But instead of then saying, you know, we've got all these people on board, myself and Nicole combined followers, we've got like millions of followers, we've got a great package to bring to Netflix and BBC. And then you might say, oh, that, like, they're probably not going to have any interest in it because of the Palestine stuff. We're taking out that kind of next stage there of even trying to pander to them. We're going to try and build, you know, as much as we can. And obviously, like, I'm not a tech guy or whatever, but I'm decent creatively, I think, in leading stuff. And we've people around us who can make something happen where you can kind of say, let's put it out ourselves, even if that begins with like a YouTube or whatnot. Apparently, if you go to meetings with BBC and Channel 4 these days anyway, they ask you like what your numbers are on YouTube and Instagram. Sure. But my dream would be, because YouTube is problematic as well, to build our own platform. You know, like, what's his name? Mehdi Hassan. Yeah. ZTO. He basically, you know, he's got fired from mainstream American media.
Is that right? Where was he?
I think it was CBS. Yeah. He opened a correction there, but he probably said something like Palestine.
He's great. He's great viewing, isn't he?
Amazing. He's amazing. And he's, you know,
have you seen him with the far right debates? It's very funny.
Yeah.
Just the amount. It's 20 mullets against him.
A notoriously difficult guy to debate as well. Like.
Notoriously different guy to debate, but somehow the mullets just walk right into it.
Yeah.
You know? I
think they just thought because, you know, he's like an Arab, they're going to just be better than him or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, he's built his own infrastructure, you know, and my dream is to, you know, I don't know what the platform would be called, but we're not depending on, oh, we can't do that sketch because, you know, Meta will censor that.
Yeah.
We can't get this meeting with Netflix because they'll say, oh, Tadhg's problematic, he went to Lebanon. Build your own and they will come. And my dream, when I go back to the SNL thing, is like, we take on Palestinian writers, you know, writers from around the global south. There's no point in doing an anti-imperialist show about global colonialism and it just being written and fronted by a white fella.
Yeah.
You know, I know the Irish have a unique perspective on it, but I'd love it to be a really, and it's happening, because in London at the moment, it's beautiful. There's all the pro-Palestine heads, and I mean, even loathsome to say pro-Palestine. I would call them pro-humanity these days. Yeah. Like, there's a real meeting point for them in the studio that we've been using and whatnot. So I could see something really building there, like, you know, and that's my dream. I'm going to go with that first anyway.
Yeah. Well, Tadhg, that's it. Thank you. Congratulations. And thanks. It's great for you to come back. I'm always happy to have you, and hopefully you enjoyed being on.
Thanks, Mario.
And my thanks to Tadhg Hickey for coming back to me on the podcast and updating me on what is a fascinating time for him and indeed all of us at the moment, for all the wrong reasons, it has to be said. My thanks, of course, to deluxebathrooms.ie for being an ongoing supporter and a sponsor of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast. They're located in Dundalk Retail Park and Eastgate Retail Park, Little Island in Cork. Up to 70% off. Make your dream bathroom a reality with Deluxe Bathrooms. My thanks, of course, mostly to you. If you can, tell one other person about this podcast if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week.